Teddy, darling, are you ready? Okay, you're good. Hello. Oh, here we go. Hello and welcome to Pet
Ah,
Talk with me, Anna, and your name? What's your name? With Teddy. And our guest today, what's our guest's name, Teddy? What's our guest's name? Do you remember? Sandra Murphy. Hello, Sandra.
hello, Anna. How are you? What a wonderful start to a podcast. This is brilliant.
Well, Teddy is always usually has something to say, don't you, Teddy? You're usually very vocal.
He is adorable, Anna. Absolutely adorable.
He is also a very helpful boy who puts my shoes away, brings me slippers, helps me
Oh,
load
wow.
the washing machine, and generally tidies up after himself. He puts his toys away, which is very nice.
Unlike most husbands.
Well, oh, so now you are here today because you have done something that I think is both very exciting and unique. Um, and it is to do with horses. So before we tell everyone what you've done, tell us about your journey with horses.
Okay. Well, I don't know. They got under my skin when I was very young. I've lived and breathed horses ever since I can remember. And I used to sit on the sofa at home when I was 3 or 4 years old, show jumping my sofa, in line with the show jumping on the TV, that sort of thing. And I got into ponies very, very young. think I was about 4 or 5. And I got my first pony at 7. When I was down in London. I was very, very lucky actually when I was living in Essex to actually be my dad bought a pony from the Travellers, and she was a scraggy little thing. She really was, and she needed a lot of love and attention to bring her back to health. And when she did, she was just amazing. And so I learned an awful lot about horses when I was very young, when I was down in Essex. And I was very lucky that when my mum decided to move up to Lincolnshire, I was able to get my own my well, she bought some land so I could have my horse at home, which was just a dream. So I've always been into horses, and I managed to get my own infrastructure where I lived in Lincolnshire, which then enabled me to compete and to show jump and do all the things that I really like doing. And I was quite lucky really, because as I said, I had my own land. And but then I joined the Royal Air Force when I was 20. And I took my horse along with me to the Royal to the camp at RAF Cranwell. And there was a saddle club there, so I was really lucky to be the first ethnic minority black girl to compete for the Royal Air Force ever in history. And it was fantastic. I did it for 10 years. And I started the Royal Air Force saddle club down at RAF Northolt when I was posted down there. So I've been with horses for all my life, and they've just been under my skin, and needless to say, I don't have Gucci handbags or go on flash holidays, because once you've got a horse, there's not much left at the end of the payday sort of thing. But it's worth it because they're just amazing, amazing, amazing creatures. They give me so much love and pleasure that, my life has revolved around them.
It's just so exciting always when I hear people talk about how they form these wonderful, nourishing relationships with other species. And so you are no exception. And now you have this amazing product that is available to help prevent colic in horses. So first of all, for viewers who are unfamiliar with this problem, um, it's more than just a tummy ache, isn't it?
It is, yes. And the thing is, I must stress there's lots of different forms of colic. And I must stress as well, I'm not a vet and I can't diagnose anything. And if you've got any issues, please go and see your vet. But I am a nutritionist and I am an equine nutritional hydrotherapist. So I've got I'm qualified in those fields. And so And so, yes, colic, impaction colic in particular is mainly caused by lack of hydration. So dehydration is one of the main causes of impaction colic. And what impaction colic is where there is not enough hydration in the system to produce the saliva necessary to break down the fibrous material that horses eat, and it gets stuck in the all the tubules that go through the gut, the small intestine, into the large intestine. So that's what happens, and it causes a blockage. And when it happens, it causes incredible pain, and then it can cause a phenomenon called twisted gut, where gases build up in the gut, and it acts like the twisted balloons that you get to make shapes, dogs and cats, and it ends up making one of those twists in those tubes, and it causes that part of the gut to die off, and so they have to have like emergency surgery to remove that part of the gut. So it's really bad. It is a bad thing.
So your experience is as a nutrition.
Like my nutritional hydrotherapist, yeah.
So the nutrition side actually is to do with horses. It's not to do with humans. I just wanted to stress that.
It is to do with horses, but we're all mammals. So we're all mammals.
I hear you. It's just I just wanted to stress that because an important qualification to point out, because what follows is also to do with nutrition for horses. So how did you, so you knew, obviously you've been involved with horses all of your life, and you were aware of the issue to do with colic, and particularly this impaction colic. Where was the light bulb moment? How did you find that well, yes, where was the light bulb moment? Suddenly go, I know what to do.
Yes. So when I was in the Royal Air Force, I went hunting with my horse. Yeah, I've never I've never been before. I wanted to go and see what it was all about, and all I wanted to do was go cross country, galloping across farmers' fields and jumping hedges and doing all that sort of thing. I wasn't really interested in the other side of it, but I took him along, and I went, and I didn't. I was very naive at that point. I was only 20 years old. I was very naive. And he didn't have anything. He had his breakfast, but he didn't have anything to drink. He was out there for 3 or 4 hours, chomping at the bit, in front, galloping. And at the one point I thought, oh, he needs to have a drink, but there was nowhere for him to drink. And it was a no, don't let him put his head down, lift his head up, so he couldn't graze. And I got a bit concerned. And then I said to the lady next to him, I said, where, I need to go back with my horse now. How far is it? She said, it's 12 miles that way. So I then had to get him home, and needless to say, by the time we got home, it was about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. It was pitch black, and he was so dehydrated, it was unreal. And I just didn't know what to do. So back then, 35 years ago, there was no mobile phones, Anna. So I had to wait until I got back before I could ring the vet. So he was 2 hours coming out. And in the end, he had to put a nasal gastric tube up his nose, which burst blood vessels. There was blood everywhere. It was just the most horrendous thing. I thought I'd killed him, And I said to the vet way back then, I said, is there anything that he could drink? Because his mouth was really sore. He couldn't chew anything. And he said, no, you can only have a bran mash. Well, you know yourself, if you have a big bowl of bran mash, it just empties you of everything. So it wouldn't have worked anyway. So way back then I had that thought, but then 20 years later, I actually had the chance to go to university and to study. And so I chose equine, obviously. And I found a way of developing a liquid feed for horses. Now, when I said about colic, dehydration can cause a lot of other issues as well as impaction colic. It's not just impaction colic. So when a horse is dehydrated, it has an effect on its whole physiology, because it reduces the balance of water and fluid within the body, which has an effect on every part of it. And so if we can help with dehydration, we can help to work with all the other issues that the horses may have. So my light bulb moment was because a horse is a prey animal, so it's got a fight or flight mechanism. It is, in parasympathetic mode, it is it's on edge, it's ready to run, everything stops, everything, all its systems shut down, ready to leg it, away from whatever's gonna kill it. And so certain physiological I can't say the word, physiological responses are suppressed, and one of the suppressions is it suppresses its thirst instinct, its thirst mechanism. So
I'm just going to back up a little bit.
Yeah. I can talk for
Yes,
England, me, sorry.
make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on. So there's an issue with dehydration. Now, in your case, with your horse when you were 20, you could understand why the horse might become dehydrated because the opportunity to drink was not there. But, and I think this is where you're coming to when you're talking about that fight mode. Why would horses who are perhaps just grazing normally in a field not be drinking? Surely people make sure that they have access to water.
Yes.
Okay, so what is it that stops horses from going over to the trough and having a drink?
Absolutely nothing when they're at maintenance. So if a horse is just grazing in the field, it's getting most of its water, by the way, from the grass, because grass has an 80% water content. So most of its water needs are catered for through grass, through grazing. However, the free water aspect is there if it wants a drink. So there's nothing wrong with that. What the issue happens is when you start to work that horse. Over and above maintenance. So over and above it just grazing around, it will then need higher levels of hydration. So for instance, if it was really hot and it was say 40 degrees, that's over and above maintenance. So it means that it will need more fluid, because it's hot, so the horse is using it's using more fluid. So it would need more. So if your horse is working, for instance, and it's sweating, it's then utilizing fluid, then it needs more fluid. Can you see what I mean? So over and above maintenance, you need to then make sure that this horse is drinking. Now, a lot of people that do have horses will recognize this. When you take a horse to a show, for instance, some don't drink. A lot of horses don't drink because when they're the only time that they're not stressed is when their heads are down and they're grazing. At any other point in time when their heads are up, the level of stress can be small or it can be quite big, quite large. So for instance, if you're loading a horse, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, a youngster, into a lorry, for instance, a big mouth of a big something that's going to eat them, they're like, oh, and they're under stress. It's only when they're 12, 15 or whatever, and they've been doing it all the time, they realize that this lorry is not going to eat them, so they go up and they're not so stressed. Can you see me? So the levels of stress,
so that's where you were now talking about the shift from the sympathetic from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic, because when we are stressed, it's that sympathetic nervous system that is working, right?
So, yes.
And so it's when we are relaxed, and incidentally, one of the problems we have as human beings is when we're not balanced in our when our nervous system is not balanced and we're operating more out of the sympathetic nervous system. We are having the cortisol, the adrenaline. It's exactly,
sorry, I got it wrong way around. Sorry.
It's exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same.
So in dogs, we know that one of the things that helps them, and you were talking about the horses having their heads down, a dog who's got his head down and is sniffing is calming his nerves. It's calming the nervous system. So there are different things that we do, and chewing for humans helps us to relax. So and it's the same thing with dogs, that chewing helps them to relax. So with horses, what you're identifying is that when they're in stress, in that sympathetic nervous system being activated, they're in flight mode, because it's a prey animal. And at that point, there are certain physiological things that happen. And one of them is that they're not drinking. Is
Yes.
that correct?
They don't take up fluid. They tend not to take up fluid, because if you can imagine them with a full belly of fluid and then having to run away from whatever's going to chase them, it's going to slow them down. So the physiological effects of thirst will be suppressed, as well as digestion as well, because then the blood flow to the digestive system has to be diverted to the muscles to allow the horse to run away. And that's why when you feed a horse and you feed it, say, for instance, a grain feed, yeah, you've got to give it at least to an hour and a half or an hour and a half to let this go through to the small intestine and be digested, yeah, or at least broken down in the stomach before it goes. Because if that grain is still available and the muscles have to then take the blood away from the digestive system, because of the smooth muscle action, peristalsis, that will then keep that grain flowing through to the hindgut, which will then cause a dietary induced colic. Yeah, because grain cannot be broken down in the hindgut, in the cecum. So that's why you've got to give 2 hours or an hour after you feed a grain feed, because of that diversion of blood from the digestive system.
And I don't want to digress from the point too much, but I can hear people out there saying, yeah, but sometimes but horses enjoy the the racing, and I'm sure that your horse was enjoying itself when it was running, the adrenaline of being in a race or being on the hunt, galloping through the fields. And I think that may well be true, but it's still a physical stress on the body, and it's still the sympathetic nervous system that is active. So it's a physical stress. There is very little difference where the body is concerned between excitement and fear.
Yes.
So it's, yourself that when you're excited, you might, your heart might pump a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And equally, if you are afraid, your heart will beat faster also. So it's that physiological process, and it's rather than necessarily the emotion that we're looking at. Let's say a heightened sense of emotion,
Yeah,
tip into sympathetic nervous system. And so here you are, and the horses are not taking in fluid because they're preparing for action.
that's
So
right.
that perfect sense. So now tell us about the solution as you found it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely correct on that, Anna. But you've got to remember that horses, like I say, are the hunted and they're not the hunters, so their heightened senses are very, very heightened, and even today, after 60 million years, they're still very, very acute, so basically, the reason why horses, like I said, won't drink is because they're under the nervous system that literally shuts these things down. But they will always eat. A horse will always graze. It's a way, it overrides the thirst mechanism. So if you've got a horse and you a stressful situation and you take it to graze, it will graze because it gets a lot of water from its grass. So grass and forage is up to sort of anywhere between sort of 60 and 85% water. So the racing, what you were saying just now about racing is probably the nearest sort of sport to the natural processes of a horse. It's like getting away very quickly, from whatever's chasing it, and then what they do is they stop and they graze, and that's where they get their fluid from. But because it's attached to soluble fiber, it's not free water. It's attached to the molecules of soluble fiber. So that then goes further into the digestive system. And then it can be stored in that form until it's broken down by hydrolysis in the hindgut. So with that said, if you then make their food into a liquid, yeah, so you grind and what I found a way of suspending the fiber within the the water, because if you put, say, for instance, grass pellets and you soak them, the grass settles to the bottom and then you've got the water at the top. There's nothing suspending the fiber in there. But if you do that, if you suspend it and make it into a sort of like a molecular gel, which is what we do, which is what I do, then it becomes a feed. So the horse will override its thirst mechanism and it will drink, because that's the way of getting this feed in. So you can lead a horse to water and you can make it drink. Yeah. So I can make a horse drink 10 liters in 30 seconds, you know, and that's because it's actually drinking its feed. It's not drinking water. If I was to give it water, it would say, no, don't want it. Can you see what I mean? It's not because the water doesn't taste very nice. It's not because it's not water from home. I get a lot of this. People say, oh, it doesn't like the water from home. From here, I have to bring it from home. It's not that. They just don't understand the physiology behind this fight or flight mechanism.
So I know that you've got a couple of videos that show how this is made. So would you share the screen, Sandra?
I will, if that's okay. This first one, I'll talk you through it. It's how we make the feed up. And then the second one is watching the horse, one of our horses, not our horses, but a horse that came to our stand and have a drink. Okay, so I'll see if I can get this. Just a minute. I'm not very tech savvy, so you'll just have to bear with me a second.
I sympathize.
I am terrible. I must admit, I am not very good at this at all. Just bear with me. I've got to move that across there and move that across there and get this one up. Right, this is the one I want to show you. So if I share my screen now, gosh, I'm not very good at this. Anna, I'm so sorry. Right, let's do that there and share screen there. There it is. Right, that's the one. Share. So I'll just, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is, I'll talk you through it. So this is Equigel. It comes in a powder form, and that's the dry matter fraction. And what we do is we then add the water to it. Yeah. And 300 grams of Equigel and 3 liters of water is enough for a 500 kilogram horse. And I'll explain how it works shortly. So there we just give it a quick mix. So it's instant. It doesn't need soaking. And then if you want to, you can add one of the chops. You can add a grass chop to it to make it a chewy feed. It doesn't have to be a chewy feed, but some people prefer it to be a chewy feed, you know, but you can, I would recommend that you teach them to drink it first, and then you can give it a chewy feed if you like. So there you go. That's it. Yeah. And it holds on to water. It literally is like a sponge, and this is my boy enjoying it, but it holds on to water, and the water then goes further through to the hindgut, basically. So that's it, and it's completely natural. There's only 3 ingredients in there, and there's no additives, there's no chemicals, there's no GMOs, and the oils that are in it are omega-3 plant-based oil. It's not omega-6 oil. There are no pro-inflammatory oils. It's absolutely 100% Mother Nature, paddock in a bucket.
Fantastic.
And this is one of the horse. This is a horse drinking. Oh, hang on. Have you got that one on screen?
No, you need to take out this one.
I need to take this one
and
out.
then start the other one.
Just bear with me a second then, because I'm not very good at this sort of thing. So stop sharing there. Is that right?
Yeah, you stopped sharing, but you now need to start sharing the next one.
Okie dokie, share the screen. And that's the one I want. And let me go there and share. Right, there we go. Can you see that one?
Yep, great.
So I'll just tell you a little bit about this horse. This horse came to me, it was being show jumped, and it came to my stand, and it literally put his head in the bucket, and it just took that bucket, and it took another bucket after that as well. So 2 buckets of that. And then it had another bucket with a chop in it. So it had 3 buckets of Equigel. Yeah.
When they say the proof of the pudding, here it is. The horses actually really like it.
They love it. They love it. And there's no reason why they shouldn't, though, to be fair, because it is fiber. It's forage. It's not flavored. It's not like a banana flavor or anything. It's literally forage. And what I was saying about this, when you feed a grain feed, you have to wait 2 hours before you ride or you travel. But with this, because it's a fiber feed, it's fiber, you don't have to wait 2 hours before when you take a horse out of the field before you take it up and ride it. Because forage is not broken down in the stomach, it's broken down in the hindgut. The stomach is only a receptacle for fiber. Yeah, so there's no blood diversion. So, whenever the blood needs to divert from the digestive system, it doesn't bother the flow of the forage, because forage is digested in the hindgut. Can you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
you use it before. So all our feeds you can use before. You wouldn't get in your car and drive to London and then put fuel in it when you get there. You'd have to put the fuel in first, because you'll wreck the engine. And this is what's happening with all these mashes that are out. They can only give them after feed, after exercise. They can only give them after for recovery. Whereas this is not a recovery feed. This is a pre-feed. You feed it before you go, and it gives them all they need before they go. And it's all based on fiber.
Well, that's fantastic. I can really see why vets might be excited about this. And I know that you've been working with some vets. So tell us about your work with the vets.
So I've been working with the British Equine Veterinary Association for a while. I've been doing the Congress for like 6 years or so, and we've got vets that came over from Europe that now you've been using it over in Europe for a long time. So a lot of the teaching hospitals and the internal medicine hospitals over in Europe use it. And a lot of the vets, the hospitals in the UK, they've got it all in their pharmacies, because this is the only feed, the only fiber-based feed that can be fed by a nasal gastric tube and directly into the stomach and into the digestive system. So they can use it to hydrate horses pre and post colic operation, surgery, and especially for post colic surgery, because horses have got, obviously if they've had surgery, they've got inflammation. They don't want to be eating fibrous food that could get stuck because of the inflammation. So this is a great way of soothing that and providing the nutrients that the horse needs through a nasal gastric tube, or voluntarily. So you can voluntarily give them a liquid fiber feed. So we have got a patent on it. I've worked hard. 5 years it took me to get the patent on it, and that's why we're under the radar for the first 5 years of our development. And so then we had Brexit, and then we had COVID, and so it really battered us, really. But we're still here. But the thing I've found, though, Anna, is the fact that there are companies out there, and I'm not here to mention any names, but that are using, I would say, not the right ingredients that are good for the health of the horse. So, for instance, they're using things like pro-inflammatory oils to increase energy. So they're using omega-6 oils, which are pro-inflammatory, rather than omega-3 oils,
And that is an issue right across the board,
major.
including with other animals, where particularly if they're eating, let's say, chicken that's been fed on food that's rich in omega-6, it
Yes.
creates balance. And people don't realize how delicate that balance needs to be between omega-3 and
Yes.
omega-6 for all of us, and
All of
horses
it.
are no exception. So this is clearly very valuable information that you are sharing with everyone. If people want to find out more about your work, how do they do that?
Well, they can go on my website, www.equidiet.org.uk. You can find it, or just put hydration, horse hydration, or anything like that in Google. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. And I think, the basic thing is about there's a lot of things going on that are causing horses to have real detrimental issues, and it can be easily solved by going back to basics and feeding natural. I always implore people to check the labels, read your labels, find out what it is you're feeding. You wouldn't feed your child something and you don't know what you're feeding it. You have to check your labels. And some of the things that you have to look out for, especially if your horse has got some sort of metabolic issues like laminitis or anything like that. Wheat feed, oat feed, molasses. Yeah, these are the three things that perpetuate, insulin production, and it will keep metabolic disorders going. And just good quality omega-3 plant-based oil yeah, is really good. Anything that's going to cause sugar spikes is something. So flavorings and all those sorts of things that chemicals added, soya, GMO, just be aware of these things. NIS is another thing that they use a lot, which is used to bulk out the feeds, and that is wheat straw sprayed with caustic soda. Yeah, wheat straw. It's called NIS. Have a look on your labels. If it's got NIS on it, avoid it like the plague, because there's an upsurge of hindgut ulcers. And if you know what caustic soda does, it breaks down cell walls. So if fiber has digested in the hindgut, then it just stands to reason that if it breaks down cell walls and it's going to the hindgut, then this is why we're getting, possibly, this is my opinion, more instances of hindgut ulcers, which are really hard to cure. So gastric ulcers are the highest claim on insurance. If you feed something like this is my Hydrate. Yeah, Hydrate is a smoothie, so you can feed this to any horse, and it allows them to get instant hydration, and it's grass based. There's only 2 ingredients in this. There's nothing in there that's going to hurt a horse at all whatsoever. It's instant as well, and you can feed it to your horse, and it will cause that fiber mat in the stomach to stop acid splash. That is what's causing these incredible painful issues with horses with gastric ulcers. And you were talking about dogs. I have a product here called Hydrocane, and this is amazing. So you can lead a dog to water, but you can't make it drink, and you can with Hydrocane. So, have a look at the website. If you're really keen to know more, please give me a ring. I'm really keen to speak to people and to try and pass on some information and some education about it, because I know that horse owners don't know, some of them don't know about nutrition, and I'm here to help, give them the information so that they can make informed decisions about what they're feeding their animals.
Fantastic. Sandra, I will be putting a link to your website in the
Thank
description
you.
box. Thank you so much for your time today.
You are so welcome, Anna, and thank you for having me. And I love your dog. He's so gorgeous.
Well, he is currently napping with
Oh,
Tigger.
look at
So
it.
there is clearly not going to say goodbye. I think Teddy always does hellos. He's not keen on goodbyes.
Oh, bless him. Well, give him a hug from me, please, because I miss my doggy cuddles. But yeah, please give him a hug from me.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.